And so a lot of people don't really realize that the signal flow of your effects really matters a whole lot. If you have your EQ before your distortion or your EQ after your distortion, really makes a big difference in stuff. If you have the EQ before the compression, after the compression, this really changes things a whole lot. And it's very important to kind of keep in mind what you're doing and try different orders, change it up, try to, flip it around and see what works and what doesn't work, what sounds good, what doesn't sound good. That's the only way you're really going to get your head around this stuff, is just to try it. Keep doing it on your own, and don't be afraid to make it sound bad, because that's the only way that you're gonna make it sound better eventually. So when you're in the studio by yourself, try things out and kind of get freaky with it, and then see what's actually going on. So in an effect chain, the sound of each individual effect changes the signal, then outputs the affected signal, then the next effect changes that signal, and so on. So if we start with our dry sound here, we put effect 1 on it, and then we put effect 2 and effect 3. And what's happening is effect 1 changes the signal. You can see here our signal is this black color here, and then it goes into effect 1, it becomes red, and then the red color is passed out of effect 1, and then it becomes green, and then the green color is passed out of effect 2, and then it becomes blue in effect 3, and then it goes to the speakers and we hear it. So what I'm basically trying to illustrate with these colors is that effect number 2 is affecting what's coming out of effect number 1. It's not affecting the dry signal. It's not a whole bunch of effects that are all affecting the dry signal. It goes from one into the next, into the next, into the next, like that. So if I go in here, let's go ahead and make a little drum loop here. And the reason why I'm going to make my own little drum loop is because I want to really show y'all about how these things work. And the easiest way to do it really is to illustrate it with a drum kit that has like a lot of highs and lows and stuff like that. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to pull up let's see. Let's see here for my drums. We will use let's go ahead and see what's in contact here. And I'm going to use, oh wait, I gotta turn on my samples. There we go. Let's get rid of contact here for a second and get those samples going on. And I'm going to plug in my other drive as well. There we go. All right. So now let's get contact going here. Contact, instruments, contact. There we go, cool. Why are you still not there? Okay, let's try it one more time. It's not showing my instrument libraries because my hard drive was not connected, so I just have to connect it up. Why are you? Ugh. Really? All right. Hold on, let's do a restart on Pro Tools and see if that fixes the problem. Yay, fun with technology. Try this one more time and see why we're not seeing that contact. All right, there we go. Open this up. Are you going to work this time? Are you going to work? There you go. Looks like you're working. Okay, cool. All right. So we'll go in here and let's go to the, let's see, what's in single instruments? I'm not sure if the drum lab has what I need in it or not. That looks like it's more of a wow, okay. Yeah, not that. Some crazy drums there. Do not say the instruments. Let's go down here to our contact factory library. And going here to our urban beats. Okay, and we'll grab a kick from here. That's a cool kick, but I'm not sure why it's... Oh, that's why. I see why, because I'm... Because I'm playing the loops here. Alright, well, that's not too bad. Oh, I'm still gonna... Let's see if I can find this. Let's see. I'm just gonna search around a little bit more for this. Drum selection. This is like a really small amount of drums though. Let's see if my retro machines. Yeah, I always do my drums in Ableton Live, so that's why when I try to get out of Ableton Live and do drum stuff, I get a little bit lost. I don't really produce in Pro Tools anymore. So, and the drum selection's not really. All right, well, we'll just do this. Analog machines. Are there any drum stuff in here? That's all that. Oh, drum machines. Here we go. 808 kit. There we go. That's what I want. Okay, cool. In here. All right, now we're cooking with fire. Cool. All right. That's what I want right there. That. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go in here. We're going to lay down that hi-hat first, and we're going to set the grid and highlight the part of the song that I want to lay out here. Boop, boop, boop. So I got that there. There's my part there. My cat wakes up every morning. Okay, and we're going to get a click track in here. Create click. There we go. Boop, boop. My cat wakes up every morning. We don't need to hear that yet. Okay. Here we go. All right, hold on. We are not in let's get into MIDI merge. Do that one more time. Cool. All right. And you can hear how off it is, but I'm just going to go ahead and quantize it. Okay, I'm just going to go in here and fix this real quick because I don't feel like replaying it. Move these over. There we go. I mean, it's pretty bad playing, but whatever. Cool. And pull up my velocity here so I can see what's going on. Okay, that sounds fine. Okay, and we're going to do that. And I'm just going to MIDI merge on top of this. Put that snare drum. Cool. All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my input quantize. We talked about this before. Set that for the 16th note. And let's go back to the other view here so we can just see what's going on. Get that 808 kick in there. Cool. All right, turn this click off. Okay, so you can hear this little loop that I've got going on. So a couple things I'm going to do here is we're just going to be showing you some stuff here that we've done before real quick. So I'm going to separate these all out to different notes so I can get a whole separation thing going here. So what I'm going to do here is every single drum hit is on a different note. We can see my hi-hat is here, my snare drum there, I got that snare drum, and let's go ahead and put a little thing like this in it. I'm just going to lay it down right in here. So we got all these notes in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these all out so they're all in their different tracks. So the way I do that, if you remember, this is from last week. We talked about this when we were talking about MIDI on Thursday. I click on my clip and I go in here to Event Operations and I go to Select Split Notes, this option right there. Select Split Notes. So we can split these into their own notes. Here we go. Let me get that little circle going on around my mouse. Select Split Notes, hit that. And now what we want to do is we'll go to All Notes and we'll go down here and we'll go to Split Notes. We're going to cut to a new track per pitch. So every new track every new pitch that's in there, every different pitch, it's going to have its own track here. Boom, so we got that there. So we have a new track per every pitch. So you can see just split everything out into its own little thing here. So AJ says, what if the different drum sounds from different plugins and you want to combine them using a particular sound from each? Would you have to make different tracks? Yeah, you could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Or you could do everything in this one kit here. I'll show you exactly. I'll answer your question exactly. So what we could do is right now I've got Contact on every single. I've got it on the one track here. I'm just going to hold down Option and drag it across to all my different tracks. So now everything is going to be on its own track. And if I hit play, They're all right here. And I can just go through and label these. This is my closed hi-hat 808. This is my snare drum 2 808. This is my snare drum 1 808. And I'm putting 808 in here because these are all from an 808 kit. This is my side stick 808. And this is my bass drum 808. And I'm not sure, what is this sound? What is this guy? It's just, oh, that's like another little hi-hat that's in there for some reason. I'm not sure why that hi-hat is in there. That hi-hat does not need to be in there. Get out of there, hi-hat. So what I can do is, to answer your question, if I wanted to get, like, let's say, for example, I want this side stick here. I don't really want that side stick to be that sound. I can go ahead and change that up. I'm just going to put these in the order. Remember we talked about the order when we were talking about the quiz yesterday. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in the order here. There we go. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the side stick here so it's a different sound. So I'm just going to go in here to my kit and I'm going to change this to the 909 kit. Let's listen to that. Yep. See how that just changed the sound. And you could totally go ahead and just put the, put a different kit in here and mess around with it. So snare drum 2, I'm not a huge fan of that sound either, so let's go ahead and change that. Whoa, whoa. Huh, that's funny. Not that sound. Not a huge fan of that one, but let's change it to a different sound. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to make sure I can hear it, and I'm just going to listen to all these different sounds. Yeah. Yeah, I like that better. And so you can see what I'm doing is I'm going through to each individual instrument. Now that I've got them all separated out like this, and I can put different kits in here, I can change different kits. So if I wanted to make a new sound from, like a new drum rhythm from scratch here, I can just use whatever kit I want. And it doesn't have to be Contact. Like I'm just using Contact right now because it's pretty easy. But let's go ahead and use, let's use Massive. Massive has some cool sounds in it, some drum sounds. And what I'm going to do, even though Massive is a synth, I can still program drum percussion rhythms in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my browser and we are going to go to percussion sounds and let's just listen to some of these. Abstack, what is this? So I'm just going to put this on here. Yeah, there we go. It's kind of a plucky sound, but all right, that's kind of a, yeah, that's kind of cool. Right? And I can go in here and I can mess around with this sound. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Cool. And I could right, so I'm going to go ahead and record that automation in there. So let's see, make sure I do that. Macro 8 is right there, boom. And now I'm just going to go ahead and change this over here to touch. And there we go. Hear how that's, you can see how it's moving the knob there. Right. Okay, cool. All right, so now what I'm going to do is let's make some of these drums punch a little bit more. What I'm going to do here is this 808 kick drum here. I'm going to layer another kick on top of it here. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this using my duplicate here, boop, and hit that. So it just duplicated out. And what I'm going to do is on here, I'm going to use the same 808 kit, but we're going to use bass drum 2, and we're going to name this one bass drum 1. There we go. So I got this stuff in here, and this one here will be Perk Massive. Make sure it's named. Just do that like that. Perk Massive, and so I know where it's coming from. Okay, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and change this pitch here to a different pitch. Let's see. Let's just see if there's some good. Yep, we'll use that one there because it's not a loop. And this, so we got 2 different kicks going on right now. We got this one here and this one here for like the longer part. And what I can do is I can take this one here and let's go ahead and change that actually. Let's change that sound as well. And this is what I do. I mean, it's really important that you find the right sounds for your. There we go. So we got that there. Let's tune that up. Just set that there. Cool. Sounds good. There we go. Nice little punchiness. All right, so now you hear how I've got like a little bit more accent on the beginning of that kick drum there. Now let's go ahead and shape these sounds a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do here is on this kick, we're going to go ahead and put a compressor on here. And the compressor that I'm gonna use is the, let's use a, wait, no, that's not, those are not compressors. This compressor here. I usually use like a BF76, like an 1176 or something for this. And I think the one that I want to use is, let's use this one down here. It's Native Instruments. And you can hear it bringing that low end out already. There we go. Let's make it really dirty. Hear how like kind of like nice and dirty that is. I can shape the sound here like this. Okay, we got that. There we go. That's nice. Now with this one here, we might want to put some EQ on it. Let's just go ahead and see what our EQ is doing. I'm going to go ahead and use Fab filter here so I can just hear this really well. I can just see what's going on. Yeah, that's all right. Now with this one here, we don't want a lot of that low end. Pull that down. There we go. Right? Cool. Now we got these 2 sounds here. Now let's go ahead and talk about, get started talking about like a little bit subgrouping. We're going to be talking about this more tomorrow, but I'm going to go ahead and subgroup these 2 kick drums. So in order to subgroup these, I'm going to make a mono aux track. And these 2 sounds are both mono pretty much. I mean, I know they're on stereo tracks, but they don't really need to be on stereo tracks. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get bus number 1 here. I'm going to send both of these here to bus 1. And have this go in here like this. So we got that there. And now with these 2 sounds here, we're going to pull them together just a little bit more. And I'm going to use a glue compressor here, which is going to be on, let's see here, the Solid Dynamics. Yep. This again, this is Native Instruments. If you get the complete package, this comes with the complete package. Oh, not this one. Native Instruments, Solid Bus Comp. This is the one. Yeah. Oh, there we go. So this one here is the bus one here. Let's see. Now you can hear it gives it a little bit more push. And the threshold, turn that up a little bit so we're not really, I don't want to do too much compression on it. Get the attack, ratio, release, cool, okay. And then the other thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to use a secret weapon here. This thing is dope. It's from Sound Toys, and if you are not really familiar with it, it really kind of brings things out. And it might be a little bit too much for this one, but let's just see what happens. Hear how that changes that sound around a lot? Right, so now we're really getting that sound kind of sounding really cool there. And let's get these. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run all my drums into a subgroup here. And that's going to be my aux, and we're going to call this one drum group. I made a new track called Drum Group, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these drums here and I'm going to run them into that drum group here. So we just have everything nice and contained. And again, we're going to go into this in real detail tomorrow, exactly why we're doing all this stuff. But here, let's call this one bass drum group, so we know exactly what we're doing here. So we got these, and all of these are going to go into my bass drum, my drums group, which is bus 3 and 4. There we go. Now, one thing you'll notice is the snare drum is kind of weak compared to this this bass drum going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, that kind of that decapitator plugin from Sound Toys is really like, you know, I ended up using it on quite a bit of things. I really love this one here. So we're going to go over here to decapitator and go. Let's turn the mix down a little bit. Now, what we may notice is that the bass drum is a little bit maybe loud for the snare drum. And bring this one down a little bit. Maybe shape that one a little bit so it's not quite as long. Can I do that? Yeah, I think I can. Yeah, there we go. Here, let's. Yeah. All right. Cool. Maybe a little bit longer. Cool, so we got that there. And let's get this over here. Cool, get a little EQ going on with this one here. And let's go ahead and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and get this one here going on, and let's tune this up a little bit. All right. All right, cool. So I got this little drum group going on here, and nice. And let's get a little reverb going on in here as well. So I just made an aux track here, stereo aux track for my reverb as we've seen in the past. And I'm going to go ahead and change the input here to bus 5 and 6. And the snare drum here, let's send that over to bus 5 and 6 as well. Sweet. And we're going to go here for my, we're going to grab the reverb. We'll grab a deverb here. there, the one that popped up. Cool. I forgot I'd put a default in there. Let's go ahead and send this off. There we go. That's a nice little reverb on there. And what I'll do is I'll pull this up. Yeah, nice. Hear how that's like all kind of like you're hearing that reverb come in all these different tracks? It's giving it some nice depth to that. But I didn't add the reverb into my kick drum over here. The kick drums we don't usually want to have a reverb on. And then this reverb, I'm going to pull it into my drum bus as well. So now it's all together there. All right. So now we've got this drums going on here. Let's just hear that with the Tony vocals here real quick.
My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed.
Whoops, hold on. Let's do a little bit more than a 2-bar loop here. Let's do a 4-bar loop. Yeah. And so now what's cool about this is I can now see exactly where each instrument is playing, how long it's playing for, all this stuff here. It's really easy to see what's going on with all my various instruments here. Instead of having them all in one thing in one track, I put them on different tracks, I have them in different clips, and now I can see exactly where each instrument comes in, comes out, all that stuff.
My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. He goes and he gets a drink of water. My cat
All right, cool. So we're gonna mute that again there. And let's just go in here and talk about this drum group here for a second. So everything is now going into this track right here, this aux track. All these drums are going through this aux track. So if I go in here and I turn this aux track down, we're no longer gonna hear any of those drums. If I turn them back up, now we can hear all the drums. So what we've got going on here is any effect that I put on this track is going to affect all my drums. And you can see I've got individual effects on each drum. If you've been paying attention, you've seen exactly how that's changed things up. It makes it sound really nice. And then what I can do here is I can now go on here and I can put I can put an effect on the drums overall. So now let's start talking about this effects chain stuff. So basically what we've been doing here is setting things up for talking about the signal flow of stuff. So what I want to do is I want to put some stark examples in here for you, like really over the top examples so you can hear stuff and how it makes a difference with things. So what we're going to do is first of all we're going to put an EQ on here. I'm going to use a 7-band EQ just because it has lots of options here. And we'll go ahead and we'll put a low cut in here, and I just want you to hear this low cut, this whole thing. So there, got that there. So you can hear, we can hear all our sounds, but you can't really hear that low end very well. When I pull it down, there we got our low end back now. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a distortion unit in here. And one of my favorite distortions that I have for this kind of stuff is the UAD Bermuda Triangle. This is a really interesting distortion. It's got a lot of flavor to it. It's a pedal. And this is really easy to demonstrate here with just these two plugins. So my Bermuda Triangle here it's got this really a lot of like sustain, and I can put more. And hear how that makes everything sound like, you know, it's just like distortion. I mean, to me it just sounds like distortion, but that's because I put a lot of distortion on a lot of things in my life. So what we're gonna do here is we are going to take this and I'm gonna move this EQ up like this, and let's listen to it now. See how it's bringing out the sounds differently. If I bypass this EQ, see how it brings everything up like that? Okay, so that's what's going on with that distortion there. And if we cut out the low frequencies, hear how it changes everything. Let's go ahead and, bypass it. There we go. See, now that clicky sound comes out a lot more. You can hear it a lot more, but if I bypass it, all we hear is that 808. So let's go ahead and do this though. Let's change the order. Let's go ahead and turn this back on, but let's put it here after the Bermuda Triangle. So what's going to happen is now the drum sound is going to go into the Bermuda Triangle, and then we're going to hear it's going to cut out the low frequencies after the distortion. Okay, let's hear it before the distortion. Okay, you hear how different that sounds. We still have the same EQ and the same distortion pedal on the sounds, but now what's happening is because it's changing the order of stuff, and that's affecting our signal and our frequencies. Now, in order to understand exactly what's going on here, let's just see what we've got in our notes here. Right now, what we're doing is a serial effects chain. This is a row of effects, one right after the other. So the dry signal goes into effect 1, into effect 2, into effect 3. Right. So here, what's happening is that distortion works on all your frequencies at once, and you kind of have to understand a little bit about what distortion does. So let's go ahead and mute this, and let's just listen to this distortion for a second. And so right now we've got all the drums playing in here, and let's go ahead and check this out. Now, what's happening is that 808, that low kick drum, is really overpowering everything in the distortion, because 808 drums, they have a lot of energy, a lot of energy, but it's all in low frequencies. So if you don't have speakers that can recreate the energy, you're not really going to hear very much of it. So like, for example, if you're sitting at home right now, you don't have headphones on, or you've got little earbud headphones in, like really crappy ones or whatever, you're not really going to hear that low end that I'm talking about. If you're just listening on your phone right now, you're not going to hear this low end what I'm talking about. All you're going to be hearing is nothing, because 808s, they need speakers to recreate them. They need the right kind of drivers to recreate them, to be able to play that sound. So if you don't have a good speaker system, or if you're just listening on like the crappiest of crappy speakers, well, first of all, you shouldn't be. And second of all, you're not hearing any of this stuff. So all you're going to hear is the high frequencies. That's because they have so much low energy. Well, that low energy will overpower everything else. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to turn off my, I'm going to bypass all the effects here. So let's just listen to it without any effects on it. You can hear that low end, that 808. I'm going to mute the 808. And actually bass drum 2 is the 909. So now all we're hearing is the 909 kick drum. You hear it doesn't have any of that low energy in it. It's just, there's not really a lot of low end going on. If I bring the 808 back in, now we can hear that low end. Let me just solo this. You can hear that 808 in there. There's the 909 kick. Right there it is by itself, the 909. Let me go ahead and unsolo. Okay, so we have that, all those sounds in there, but now let's listen to this Bermuda Triangle. And you hear how the sounds are kind of dancing with each other, and that's because there's a certain amount of compression that's happening with the distortion, but it's really happening from that 808. All that low end that's happening there is really changing things up. So what happens if I mute the 808? Let's check this out and listen to the sound. I'm not applying an EQ here, I'm just muting that 808 and taking that low energy out of the signal. All right, let's put the 808 back in. And Moises says, without the 808, it sounds lifeless. Yeah, it definitely changes the sound up, and things don't kind of move around as much with each other. Now, it took me forever to really understand why this was happening. And it's all happening because of that 808. And if you can't hear the 808, you're not going to understand why it's happening. That's why it's really important to have the right speaker system. People will say, Tony, I want to get these speakers. They're like little, 3-inch speakers. And I'll say, well, what kind of music are you making? They'll be like, oh, I'm making trap. I'm like, those like 3-inch little speakers, I know they're cheap. They cost $150 for the pair. They're not going to help you out, because with trap, you need to be able to hear that low end. You're not going to understand at all what's going on with your song if you can't hear that low end if you're making trap or hip hop, stuff like that. So really you need the right speakers so you can hear what's going on. And then you also need to understand how these things work with each other. Hi from America, how you doing? So what we want to do is, first of all, we need to hear it. Second of all, we need to understand what's happening. It's all that low energy that's in there. So if we go ahead and play this again, I want you to listen to the da-da-da-da-da-da-da sound. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? This one here, let me just play this for you. That sound there sounds like that when I put the distortion on. It's pretty obnoxious. So let's go ahead and listen to that. Here's with no 808 kick, and listen for that sound. You can hear it very clearly. It's all up in there. Now I'm going to unmute the 808 and listen to what happens to that sound. It goes away. The reason why it went away is because the sound is getting super compressed with this distortion when that 808 hits, and it's basically sucking the energy out of the other sounds. So you're just hearing that 808 sound just kind of getting in there and just pushing everything, right? Well, we don't have to use the mute to get that same kind of effect. We can use an EQ in here, but it's going to really depend on where that EQ is placed in the chain. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the EQ before the distortion, which is essentially the same as muting that 808. It's not quite exactly the same, but it's very similar. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play right now. You can still hear it, that 808, but it's no longer affecting the da-da-da-da-da-da-da sound. Now let's go ahead and put it after the Bermuda Triangle and watch what happens. Now, that's actually a really cool sound. What's happening is we're still hearing the 808 hitting, but it's also ducking out that high, that da-da-da-da-da-da sound. It's ducking it out. And the reason why is because we put the EQ after the Bermuda Triangle, so we're still hearing the 808, we're still hearing everything in there, but what it's doing is the energy from the 808 is still going through into the distortion, so it's affecting all the other sounds. If we have the EQ before the distortion, it is no longer affecting the other sounds. So they're just playing super loud, and they're not having dynamics that are going up and down from that distortion compression. Now, this may be a bit confusing. It might be a bit hard to wrap your head around. That's okay. I understand that it's a lot to think about. But really what you need to do is you need to understand that putting the EQ before, after distortion, stuff like that really changes the sound, and you should be experimenting with this, because if you experiment enough, eventually you will get it. You're not going to understand it just from watching me talk. You're only going to understand it from actually trying it out. And that's the important part, is that you get in there and you try things out and you work with it and you say, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen. Let me see what happens when I put this before this or this after this. Now, I'm at the point where I understand what's going to happen. I know that when I put the distortion after it, or I put the EQ after the distortion, it's going to affect things. What it's going to sound is a little bit different. I'm still, it can be surprised about, like, the results will be sometimes a little bit surprising, but I know basically I can go in understanding what's going to happen. But the only reason is because I've done this a million times. I've tried things out a million times. So that's the basics of this. And this works the same way with compression and stuff like that. I mean, this is a very over-the-top example. I put it over the top intentionally so that you can see really easily what's happening here. But it is it is something that you can quite easily see here. So what I'm going to do now is, let's go ahead and mute these. So, cool. So, yep, 100%. That's actually what I was about to do right now, is I'm going to do the compression. The reason why it's the same is because the distortion is basically compressing the signal. So let's go in here, and I'm going to use one of my favorite compressors. This is not a compressor that you have, but, or well, maybe you have it, but you don't have it out of the box with Pro Tools. It is the 1176 Rev E. So I got this here. All right, so we're gonna push this pretty hard here. Now let's check this out. Let's put the EQ in here. So there's the EQ after the compression. Now let's put the EQ before the compression. You don't hear quite as much of a distinction, but you can hear a bit. If you listen carefully, you can hear the kick drum, length of the kick drum better now. Right, and if we pull it up like this, kind of miss it a little bit there. It's not as pronounced, and that's why I use it. That's why I always just demonstrate this with the Bermuda Triangle, because that's a really good distortion for hearing this. But it does make a difference with compression as well. And I highly recommend, exploring that as much as you can. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and let's put these on a different track. And I'm going to go ahead and get an aux track, and we're going to call this one drum compression here. And I'm going to move these over to here. Boop, boop. Boop, boop. We're going to put these, all three of these over here. And let's make one more. We can call this one drum distortion. There we go, drum distortion. I'm going to put my distortion there, and we'll copy this over like this. Actually, I don't know if we need this one here. All right. So now we're going to talk about parallel compression here, and the same stuff applies. The effect matters, but the difference here is the parallel. We were using a serial chain before, and now we're going to use a parallel chain. So a parallel chain is two rows of effects that are independent. They do not affect each other. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to set up a parallel chain here. We're going to have one chain here with a lot of compression on it. We're going to have one chain here with distortion on it. And then we're going to have one chain here that's actually a natural, it's just natural. So the way we can do this actually is really, really easy. And I think the way I've got it in my notes is possibly even a little bit convoluted. You don't even need to get this complex with it, really, because remember, our buses are sending the signal into wherever our destination is. Remember, we can have the buses going to different places. So we've got all of these drums going to bus 3 and 4 right now. So they're all going to this one here. They're all going to this drum group right here. Well, what we can do is we can have them go to the drum group, we can have them go to the drum comp and the drum distortion all at the same time. So what I do to do that is I just change all these so they all say bus 3 and 4, the same signal here. So now when I do that, I can mute any one of these. There's with the a lot of compression on. I'm just going to put more compression on here as well. Let's go ahead and I'm going to turn this down so we're not blasting ourselves out. There we go. And actually, this probably is not the best compressor to do this with. Let's do this with the. Let's see what it sounds like with the SSL G-Bus. Okay, so here's this one. Turn that threshold all the way down. Put the attack up, put this release down. Okay, so what I want you to hear is now it's got a real snap on the beginning, like a super snappy pop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take out a little bit of that EQ, a little bit of the low end here, not quite as much. Because I don't want that kick drum, I don't want that long kick drum affecting everything quite the same way. Now we can hear super poppy, it's super snappy on the beginning. Well, that's the sound here of this one, but this is not the real sound that we want, because this sound it doesn't have the low end in it. I took the low end out intentionally so it doesn't overpower everything. So this is not really the sound we want. Let's go ahead and put this one back in here. There's my original sound, but probably what I want is, here, let me go ahead and change this name, drums, no comp, or let's, maybe we can call them drums natural. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix these two together. So I'm going to pull, here's my drums. Let's listen when we pull this up. And you hear how it's like a bit poppier now? All right, here. Okay, and pull this up so we get that low end back in there. Cool. So now we've got the pop and we've got the natural sound, and that's because what we're doing is we've got two chains going on here. We've got this one chain here, chain A, which is actually doesn't have any effects on it, it's just the natural sound of the drums. And we've got chain B, which has all the, it's got the compression on it, so it's super, super over compressed. Now, you don't really want to hear, in this case, we do not want to hear this one by itself. Like, that doesn't make any sense unless you're doing like a special effect. But we add this one in. Now we have the punch from the natural compression drums, but we've got the low end and all the body from the natural drums. Now let's add in this Bermuda Triangle drum as well. And we're gonna add this in. I'm gonna pull this up into our mix. Just a little bit. Let's solo this, let's mute these. There we go. That's what I wanted, yeah. Cool. And now this gives us some nice movement to our beat. So in a sense, we are subgrouping to create more control of our signal, which then allows us to create a cleaner chain with minimal CPUs. Actually, this has nothing to do with CPU usage. I'm not even concerned. I'm like not even paying any attention to what my CPU usage is right now. That's not part of the equation. Really, I'm just going after a certain sound. So what we're doing with this, the subgrouping, what it does is it just allows us to combine the signal from multiple instruments into one signal. So I can now control that one signal. And it gives us more control, because what I'm doing is I'm separating things out here and I'm applying effects to different parts of it, and then I'm balancing between those different sounds. So I'm using in this case, I've got 3 different effects chains here. Each one has its own sound. So if I go ahead and mute this to here, there's our natural sound right there. And then here's our compressed sound. And then here's our distorted sound. And now what I'm doing is I'm mixing between those to create a new mix of my drums. So essentially what we're doing is we're using the same source material, but we're affecting it 3 different ways to and then we're mixing it back together again. But it really doesn't have anything to do with the CPU usage. It has more to do with the kind of sound that we're going after here. Okay, and that's using parallel effects chains like this. And so this here is a serial chain. It's just our effects, just normal. Remember, the sends are always after the effects. It doesn't matter if they are set for pre or post fader. Therefore, the sound going to the send is the affected sound. So what I mean by that here is over here we've got the snare drum. The snare drum here is going to decapitator. Right, so you can hear there's all that reverb on it. Well, the reverb is the decapitator sound. If I turn this off, I don't know if you can hear that reverb sound or not. Let me just put this up. Let me turn the decapitator back on. See how that changes the sound of the reverb? Right. And the reason why it's changing the sound of the reverb is because the snare drum is going through the effect and then it's going to the send, which are sending it to the reverb here. That's always the case. The send is always after these effects right here. So just keep that in mind. Whatever effects you put on it, those are going to be sent to your send out. Okay. So that just shows right here, see this B1 and 2, bus 1 and 2 is just here after everything. So EQ, comp, EQ, tape, all that stuff that's in here in this case would be, the send would be after that. That's what I'm showing right here. And if we set up a parallel chain, this one here, I actually set it up in the notes here a little bit differently than what I've got it set up here in the session. I'm actually doing it a little bit of a more streamlined way in the session right here. You could set things up to go like from different buses on the sends if you wanted to, but really with Pro Tools, Ableton Live, Logic, all those, you would set it up kind of more like this. I think would be easier. You set up the output to be like a bus, and then you just have different inputs basically capturing the signal from that bus. So that's what we've got in this case here. And what we've got here, this is the parallel drums compression, just what I just showed you. So we have the compressed signal provides the smack and punch. The dry sound provides the body and the low end, and then mix them together to achieve the sound you want. And that's what we've got going on right here in this session. And what I'll do is, when we get to Zoom, when we're done with this, I'll go ahead and put the session up on Canvas so you can mess around with it, you can see it, you can explore it. Well, actually I can't, I'll have to change some stuff around because I'm using a lot of plugins that y'all actually don't have access to. But I can change some of these out so you can just load it up. For the most part, you could load it up. So what we've got here is exactly what I just showed you. The dry signal is over here. That's this track here, the natural sound, drum natural. That's our dry signal. And the compressed sound here is the drum compressed here. And then our distorted sound is right here under drum distortion. And I'm just basically mixing all three of these. Now, one last thing I would do here, and this is a subgrouping thing, and again, we're going to really dive in deeper into subgrouping tomorrow, but today should kind of help you to understand about subgrouping a little bit more when we get there, is that this here is going to be my drum group. And this drum group here is going to be a mix of all three of these sounds here. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to bus 7 and 8. And these three here are going to go to bus 7 and 8. There you go, boom. So now my drums overall, I can just turn them down. And I can mess with the level of the drums right here. So I've got my vocals.
My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. He goes and he gets a drink of water. Then it knocks my head. My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. He goes and he gets a drink of water. Then it smacks my head. My cat wakes up every morning.
All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and put an EQ on this after this lo-fi here. And you can see I've already got an EQ here in the beginning. It's a high-pass EQ. I'm just cutting it at 300. And that is just to get rid of low stuff in the voice and everything like that because this microphone was kind of, garbage. Not garbage, but it's just not great for this kind of stuff. And so what I'm going to do here is I've got my I've got 1176 compressor here, and I've got this lo-fi, but this lo-fi is actually changing the sound. It's giving me like the highs and stuff like that a little bit in a place I don't really want them to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here. I'm going to put another EQ in here to control my highs that are coming in after this lo-fi. So I've got two EQs here. This first EQ is to control my lows that's going into everything, because remember, we want to really make sure about our low frequencies before we go into our compressors and stuff like that, as we just learned. And I've got that one going in there, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull back a little bit on this because it feels a little bit bright to me.
My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. He goes and he gets a drink of water. Then he smacks my head.
Yeah, better.
My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. He goes and he gets a drink of water. Then he smacks my head. My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. He goes and he gets a drink of water. Then he smacks my head. My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed.
Cool. All right, let's go ahead and let's see what happens when we put a little stereo spread on this bad boy here with the micro shift and see what happens. I'm not sure if this is gonna do anything or not really, if it's gonna sound good or not. I just wanna go ahead and get a little bit of stereo, something going on.
My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed.
Yeah.
He goes and he gets a drink of water. Then he smacks my head. My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. He goes and he gets a drink of water.
There we go. We got a little bit of stereo spread on these drums now. And that just came from me putting a little chorus micro shift thing on this drum loop here. Let's go ahead and listen to that solo it out. Remember, that was my old drum loop that I had in there. Let's go ahead and use that right there. Yeah. There we go. A steeper Q here is going to mean more frequencies are going to get cut off. There we go. Let's listen to it with the drum loop. Cool. All right, that's pretty good. I want to go ahead and change that loop up a little bit though. Let's go down here, because I'm not sure I like where this is. I'm going to go ahead and move that around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into shuffle mode. I'm going to grab, let's grab this part here. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Put it into shuffle mode. I'm going to grab this and move it here so it moves that around. There we go, much better. Yep. Now it's following what my other drum beat is doing. Before, this was over here like this. Right, but if I put it here, yeah, much better. I don't know if y'all can tell the difference or not, but I like the difference much better. I'm gonna go ahead and Option Shift 3, and there we go. There we go, cool. All right, we're gonna take all these little drummy drums here. Oops, and copy. Let's use holding down Shift, and I'm gonna hold Option and drag these over like this. Let's listen. Let's put on everything here so we can hear it all.
My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. He goes and he gets a drink of water. Then he smacks my head. Ungo is the man. Ungo is the man. Ungo is the man.
Oh, and I didn't copy those over, but let's go ahead. I actually kind of like that. Pull these over like this. Boop, boop, boop. And we'll get these kicks in there. Let's listen.
Hugo is the man. Hugo is the man. Hugo is the man. He's a little furry man. Hugo is the man. Hugo is the man. Hugo is the man. He's a little furry man.
Cool. AJ says, if I wanted to add an open hi-hat, is it possible to expand that sound? You're talking about the hi-hat that I have in here right now. This particular sound is not an open hi-hat. It's not, but there probably is a hi-hat, an open hi-hat in here. Let's just see. Hold on, let's see. Well, this one is called open hi-hat, but it's not. It's not really a. This particular kit does not seem to have. Does not seem to have an open hi-hat. We'd have to get an open hi-hat from somewhere else. Most 808 drum kits do have an open hi-hat sample in them. For some reason, this one is not really much of an open hi-hat sound. So it depends on your drum kit. If you want to add an open hi-hat, it is possible to expand the sound, but probably not how you're thinking. You have to just add another sample into that. All right, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to stop here and take a break.